Let me take you back to a moment that completely blindsided me. My name's Jack Thompson, and I'm 27. I've been married to Emma for just over 5 years, a beautiful, crazy ride that still feels fresh. You know how marriage is, though, right? You hit these bumps along the way, but you push through. Well, what I'm about to tell you isn't just a bump, it was like hitting a brick wall. It all started when I was sitting on the couch, casually reading this article about space, of all things. It was one of those pieces that makes you question everything you thought you knew. I was kind of laughing to myself, thinking how we humans create these grand ideas, teach them in schools, and then, bam, new data comes along and flips the script. Everything we thought was fact gets thrown out. The experts we relied on, they're replaced overnight. And right in the middle of my cosmic thoughts, Emma, my wife, my love of 5 years, walks in. Now, I know Emma better than anyone, but this time, there was something different about her. She had this determined look, hand on her hip, and a seriousness in her eyes that made me sit up. Then she hit me with it. This Friday, I'm going on a date with a guy from work. I'll never forget that moment. It felt like the floor fell out from under me. What do you do when the person you love says something like that? You won't believe how I reacted, or how it all played out after. Trust me, you're going to want to hear the rest of this. I was floored. It was so unlike her, completely out of the blue. The way she stood there, her body language screaming confidence, like she'd already made up her mind, threw me off even more. Shelley loves a good argument. I've always thought her logic was a little wobbly at times, but I've lost more debates than I'd care to admit because of her sheer determination. She fights until she wins, and, honestly, she usually does. But none of our disagreements had ever touched something this huge. I had no idea what to say, and before I could even react, she went on. Listen, this doesn't mean I don't love you. It won't change our relationship. But I've realized that I want to explore things, you know. Meet other people. Broaden my experiences. It might hurt you, and I get that, but I'll always come back to you. I'll always be your wife. This won't affect us. We're solid, and I think, in the long run, this could make us stronger. Who knows? Maybe I'll even pick up a few things we can use in the bedroom together. I sat there, stunned, trying to keep it together, while a flood of crazy thoughts washed over me. Strangle her. Beat her senseless. Threaten divorce. Make a bloody scene. Cry. Scream. Make her regret this. Every terrible option crossed my mind. But then, something clicked as she finished her well-rehearsed speech. I was convinced she'd practiced it or maybe even had someone help her write it. This was a game changer. If the rules were shifting, we needed to set new ones. That's when an old memory hit me, something I'd read a long time ago about Tom Sawyer tricking his friends into painting his fence. He made it seem like it was the most fun anyone could have, and they ate it up, begging him to take over the job. That was it. Perception. Everything's about how you see things. Suddenly, I had a new plan. I turned away for a second, deep in thought, then looked back at her with a wide smile and way too much enthusiasm. That's a fantastic idea. I said, so, this Friday, huh? Wow. I hadn't seen that coming. Okay, yeah, let's do it, I replied, feeling a surge of unexpected confidence. Emma looked a bit thrown off, her eyebrows knitting together as if she wasn't sure she heard me right. She composed herself quickly and muttered, oh, cool. I'm glad you're on board. This went a lot smoother than I thought. I was expecting you to be angry. She gave me a smile, though her expression still seemed a bit uncertain. I stood up, took her hands in mine, and flashed a big grin, locking eyes with her. No, really, this is great news. Honestly, I'm relieved. There's this sweet girl at the gym I've bumped into a few times, and she's made it pretty clear she's into me. I turned her down because, well, I'm married, and I didn't want to cheat on my wife. But now we've got options, and I can't wait to talk to her and let her know we're open to some fun. Thanks for this. I almost lost it, seeing the shocked look on Emma's face, her cheeks draining of color. I casually strolled to the kitchen, doing my best to hide the smirk creeping across my face. Tossing over my shoulder, I said, I'm gonna grab some mineral water. Want anything? Her voice came out rough, almost unsure. No thanks. Her reaction was even better than what I'd originally planned, and without the risk of any jail time. Standing by the calendar on the wall, I spoke in a hushed, almost dramatic tone. All right, let's see, tomorrow's Wednesday, and she usually gets to the gym early on Wednesdays. I'll have to make sure I'm there ahead of her so I can chat with her first thing. I really hope she hasn't found someone else in the meantime. And let's hope she's free this Friday. God, that would be perfect. She's got such an incredible body, I'll have her so worn out she won't know what hit her. This is gonna be amazing. I should pack my gym bag now, throw it in the car, maybe slap on some of that aftershave she seems to like. Friday, here we come. I sipped my water, eyes on the calendar, but I was more interested in Emma's reaction from the corner of my eye. She was frowning hard, and her body language screamed that she was not okay with where this was heading. I could tell she hadn't planned for this twist. I made my way back to the couch and pretended to get absorbed in that space article again, but I couldn't make sense of a single word. My real focus was Emma, though I didn't look directly at her. She was visibly uncomfortable, her breathing uneven. I hoped she was struggling to figure out what to say. I was sure her mind was racing with arguments she'd prepared for me, but now she had to figure out how to use them without sounding like a hypocrite. Let her wrestle with that one for a while. After a few minutes, she let out a long, weary sigh. I'm tired. I think I'll head up to bed. Are you coming soon, Jack? She asked, her voice quieter than usual. Yeah, I'll finish up this article and be up in about half an hour, I said, keeping my tone casual. Good night, Emma. She leaned down for a quick kiss and started toward the stairs. Before disappearing, she turned back and said, I love you, Jack. The words were loaded with emotion, pain, disappointment, maybe even a touch of sadness. I could tell this was a turning point for us, and the road ahead didn't look easy. I sat there, thinking back over the past few weeks, realizing how I'd probably taken her at her word too much, letting a lot slide without questioning it. Maybe that was where things started going off the rails. I figured it was time to start paying closer attention and really dig into things. There wasn't anything concrete to suggest Emma was cheating, at least not right away. But then something clicked, those phone calls and texts. Lately, I'd noticed her taking a few calls in hushed tones, tucked away in corners of the house. When I asked her about them, she said they were from her sister and added, almost defensively, that she had a right to some privacy. I hadn't pressed the issue, but it was odd. Usually, when her sister called, they didn't exactly hide anything. Most times, she'd take the call right in front of me, and afterward, she'd share whatever funny family news or story they discussed. No secrets, at least not until the last few weeks. Then there were the text messages. I couldn't help but notice she'd been getting more lately, ones that made her smile or even laugh quietly to herself. That didn't sit right with me. It was time to dig a little deeper. While Emma was in the bathroom getting ready for bed, I went over to the computer and pulled up the call logs from her phone. Over the past couple of weeks, I found 4 calls and 6 texts, all from an unfamiliar number, mostly in the evening. Curious, I double-checked her sister's number in my contacts, just to be sure, and confirmed it didn't match. I jotted down the unknown number, and on a whim, I decided to look it up online. Turns out, it was linked to someone named Jason Marston. I even found an address. And wouldn't you know it, he lives right here in our city. That raised my suspicions, so I logged on to the website of Emma's employer. She works as the head of HR for Maple Brothers Engineering and Design, handling time management, leave requests, and other employee details. I'd helped her out before with some work-related searches, so it didn't take me long to look Jason up in their database. Sure enough, he'd been working there for about 7 months. That was all I needed to know. This Jason guy had been calling and texting my wife, and he definitely wasn't her sister. Now our marriage felt like it was hanging by a thread, and if I discovered she'd already crossed the line with him, we'd be done for good. Next, I logged into Emma's email account. The fact that she hadn't changed her password gave me a tiny bit of comfort, though it didn't last long. No emails directly from Jason, but when I searched his name, a few results popped up. Turns out, a woman named Darcy Sellers had been emailing Emma about him. Darcy mentioned that Jason had been asking about Emma, trying to get her personal info. Apparently, he thought she was sexy and wanted to sleep with her. And Darcy, well, she thought Jason was pretty hot herself and encouraged Emma to have some fun with him. Their emails went back and forth, full of flirting comments and playful suggestions. Darcy kept egging Emma on, telling her to go for it. Emma wrote that she hadn't slept with him yet, but the emails made it clear they were planning to go on their first date this weekend to see where things might go. I was fuming, my mind racing. I wandered around the house, throwing my gym clothes together with enough noise to make sure Emma knew exactly what I was up to. I packed them into the car for tomorrow's gym session, though in reality, it was more for appearances than anything else. That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts kept spiraling, thinking about what the future held for us. Things were unraveling fast, and I wasn't sure how we'd come back from this. The next morning, on Wednesday, I got up early, feeling oddly chipper. I hummed a tune like I didn't have a care in the world and headed off to the gym, letting Emma stew a bit over what I might be up to. I kept my workout low-key, didn't talk to anyone, just kept to myself, and after that, I headed to work as usual. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop thinking about what to do next once I got home, but I still managed to get through the workday and earn my paycheck. By the time I pulled into the garage at home, I still didn't have a clear plan for how I was going to handle things with Emma. Her car was already there, and when I touched the hood, I could tell she'd just gotten back not long before me. I paused at the kitchen door, taking a deep breath to prepare myself for continuing this strange game we were playing. When I walked in, I put on a big smile and greeted her with a cheerful, "Hey, baby," as I headed toward the bedroom, unbuttoning my shirt and loosening my tie. Climbing the stairs, I casually tossed over my shoulder, "So, Emma, can we talk about this weekend? I think it's a good idea for us to lay down some ground rules moving forward, just so we're both clear on things." From downstairs, she replied, "Yes, I think we should. I ordered Chinese food for dinner, hope that's all right." Her voice was shaky, as if she was starting to lose her balance. The tension in the air was thick, and I could feel it from both of us. This evening was bound to get interesting. When I came back down, now in jeans and a t-shirt, the food had already arrived. We started serving ourselves from the takeout boxes, barely speaking as we filled our plates. I broke the silence, "Since you've had some time to think and plan for this weekend, and I'm just now getting the hang of our new relationship dynamic, I've put together a few thoughts. In fact, I even sketched out a flowchart." I gave her a smirk. "You know, you can take the guy out of programming, but you can't take programming out of the guy. Anyway, I thought we should go over a few ground rules, just to make sure we don't end up driving each other crazy or worse." Emma's eyes widened, and I could see she wasn't expecting this. She let out a sharp breath, but I carried on like I didn't notice. "First off, no bringing any of this into our house. I just think it's important that we respect this space as ours, no games, no exceptions. Second, no disrespect when we're with other people. I mean, when we're with our partners, we should keep things respectful. No need for any snide remarks or comparisons, it's just bad for us in the long run." Emma gasped again, but I pressed forward. "Third, we prioritize our shared plans. If we've got something scheduled, we don't ditch those plans just to make time for someone else. Our relationship has to come first. And lastly, no lying to each other. If we start keeping secrets or being dishonest, this whole thing is doomed from the start. I glanced at her to gauge her reaction. She was sitting at the table, staring down at her plate like she could hardly process what I was saying. She nearly choked on her food, clearly struggling to take it all in. That was fine by me. I wanted her to feel the weight of it. She finally spoke, her voice quiet and uncertain. I don't know, Jack. I have doubts about all of this. It's getting too complicated. Just then, my phone rang, and I glanced at the screen, raising my eyebrows like I recognized the number. Hold that thought. I need to take this call. I'll be right back. I stepped into our small office, closed the door behind me, and set my phone to record before answering in a low voice. The voice on the other end of the line had a thick accent from somewhere in the Indian subcontinent. Hello, Mr. Thompson. This is the IRS, and we've found that you owe $1,326 in unpaid taxes from 2021. Without missing a beat, I replied, "Oh, hi. I'm so glad you called. I'm really looking forward to Friday night. What time works best for you?" I glanced toward the bottom of the office door and saw two shadows, small enough to be Emma's feet. She was eavesdropping. "What Friday are you talking about? This is serious. You owe $1,326, and if we don't receive payment immediately, we'll send the police to arrest you," the caller continued, his tone becoming more urgent. "Perfect," I said smoothly, "I'll pick you up from your place, and we'll head to a nice restaurant for dinner, then maybe back to your apartment for the rest of the evening. What kind of food do you like? I'm so glad you're still into being my partner." I added a playful tone, making it clear to anyone listening that this was a special conversation. "We're not going on a date. We're sending the police if you don't pay now. Buy gift cards for $1,326 and give us the numbers. Do you think this is some kind of joke?" The scammer's frustration was growing, but I kept my cool. "Oh, you naughty girl." I chuckled. "Sure, we can skip the dinner and head straight to your place if that's what you prefer. But I still want to treat you right, maybe we can spend the whole weekend together. Does that sound good?" The scammer lost it. "What's wrong with you? When the police arrive, they'll teach you a lesson. This is serious, you're going to regret this." I couldn't hold back a laugh. All right. I promise I'll treat you right in bed. You're driving me wild here." The scammer cursed me out, then added, "The police are already on their way. You'll regret ever dealing with me. By the time you get out of prison, you'll be an old man." "Well, thanks for calling. You really made my evening," I said cheerfully. "I'm looking forward to Friday, sweet dreams." I could tell they hung up before I even finished. As I opened the office door, I saw Emma standing there, pale as a ghost. "Who was that?" she asked, her voice shaky. It took all my restraint not to say, "Jake from State Farm," but I kept it honest instead. I thought it was an important call I was expecting, but it turned out to be some scammer pretending to be the IRS, demanding gift cards. I shrugged casually. It's pathetic, really. Can't believe people fall for that garbage. Anyway, I guess my food's cold now. As I headed to the kitchen to reheat my dinner, I whistled a cheerful tune, just for effect. Emma's eyes followed me, full of suspicion. When I returned to the table, she shot me a look of disgust. "That didn't sound like a call from a scammer," she muttered under her breath. I smirked, catching her in her own trap. "Oh, so you were listening in? What happened to all that talk about privacy, huh? You know, like those phone calls you had with your sister." I threw up air quotes when I said "sister," making sure she felt the sting. We ate in silence for a bit, the tension between us thick enough to cut. After a while, Emma put her fork down and said firmly, "I don't want you going on that date with your gym friend this weekend." I looked up at her, fire in her eyes, and calmly replied, "And what exactly do you expect me to do while you're on your date? Stay home and knit?" My expression hardened, and I let my voice boom across the room. "Listen closely, Emma. I've got options too. If you want to change the rules of this marriage, you better believe I can, and I will, play along. We're supposed to be in this together, Emma," I said, my voice firm but calm. "If you think I'm going to sit around while you run off with someone else, you've got another thing coming. I'm not that guy. If this is how you want to live, then let's end it now. You can go find someone who'll put up with that, because it won't be me." Emma glared at me, her face twisted in frustration. She pushed away from the table, hissing under her breath, "God, why can't you be more like Tony Sellers? He lets Darcy have her fun. Why can't you just be okay with it?" I leaned back, shaking my head. "Maybe you should have married Tony Sellers then." Without another word, she stormed upstairs and slammed the bedroom door, locking herself in. I just sat there, staring at my plate. The orange chicken, which had tasted fine a few minutes ago, was now bland and unappetizing. I packed up the leftovers and stuffed them into the fridge, all while debating whether to go after her and confront the situation head-on. But no, it wasn't the right moment. Let her stew in her own emotions for a while. I sat on the couch, my stomach in knots. This felt like a breaking point, like we were standing at the edge, and one wrong step could send everything crashing down. I hoped my response yesterday had given her a taste of the hurt she was inflicting on me. Maybe now she'd see how it felt from my side of things. Only time would tell. My mind wandered to what I actually wanted out of all this. Despite everything, I still loved her. I knew deep down that Emma wasn't inherently bad. She'd just let herself get swept up in some wild fantasies, probably pushed by that Darcy. And that new guy, Jason, no doubt, had flattered her in a way that blurred her focus on us. I get it, flirting can do that. Hell, I've had women shoot me looks before too. I mean, I'm no Antonio Banderas, but I know when someone's interested. That kind of attention can mess with your head. But if she kept going down this road, we were finished. Part of me hoped the little game I played last night had made her rethink things, to open her eyes to how this could go both ways. Still, I needed to take action. I started looking up information about divorce in our state, realizing it would be a 50-50 split. We both made about the same money, we didn't have kids, and the house was modest. No big assets, nothing major to fight over. Just a clean break, if it came to that. I printed out the divorce papers, just in case. I also researched prenuptial agreements, wondering if we could renegotiate the terms of our marriage now that the game had changed. My trust had been shaken, and even if she hadn't physically cheated yet, we needed to have a serious conversation about where this was going. I wandered around the house for what felt like forever, not really doing much of anything, just giving her the space to think. I waited. An hour and a half passed before I heard the bedroom door quietly creak open. Emma walked into the living room, and I could tell from the way she moved that something had shifted. Her whole demeanor was different, calmer, almost hesitant. "Can I talk to you, Jack?" she asked, her voice soft, carrying a hint of remorse that hadn't been there before. I nodded, gesturing to the seat next to me. "Of course." I tried to sound as open and understanding as I could, patting the couch as an invitation for her to sit. She took a deep breath and sat down. "I realize now how foolish I've been," she said quietly. Her words hit me hard. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. How far had things gone? Was this her way of admitting it was over? My heart pounded in my chest, and I sat there, barely breathing, waiting for her to say more. Emma sat beside me, her eyes downcast as she began to speak. "I've been flirting with a guy from work, having lunch with him, and I even agreed to go on a date with him this weekend. Darcy was the one pushing me toward it. She's been having affairs for years, and her husband knows all about it, he lets her. She coached me on how to talk to you, helped me plan everything out. I had this whole speech prepared, and I even had responses ready for any arguments you might throw at me, all so I could do something selfish. She paused, then took a deep breath. I'm sorry. I wasn't expecting you to agree so quickly, and when you did, I was stunned. But when you mentioned having someone else waiting in the wings for you, it crushed me. I felt hurt, but then I realized that's exactly how I made you feel. You didn't pretend to be upset, but I saw it, and you turned it around on me. I finally understood what I'd put you through. She gave a slight, sad smile. You really hit me hard, you know. Jerk, she added with a hint of a smirk. Today, I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to convince myself you'd made it all up, until that phone call. That hit me again, and I realized just how close we were to everything falling apart. I feel like such an idiot. Emma wiped her eyes, trying to collect herself. I married you for so many reasons, Jack, and you've always been everything I hoped for. I got caught up in someone else's attention, feeling like I was back in school, being courted. It was exciting, and it made me feel special. But then you reminded me that you're special too, and that I could lose you. I can't, I don't want to lose you. She paused, her voice trembling. I've cancelled my plans with him. It's over, and I swear, on everything that matters to me, nothing physical happened. I never cheated on you, but I came close. I know you have every reason to doubt me after last night, but I want you back. Only you. How can I make you cancel your plans and come back to me? Her eyes welled up with tears as she spoke. Finally, I could breathe again, but the words she said didn't magically erase what had happened. I sat quietly for a moment, thinking about how far we'd come, and how far apart we drifted. We couldn't just go back to how things were before. A deep, painful gap had opened between us, and it wasn't going to be easy to close. I took a breath and spoke, my voice sharp with the weight of my emotions. Emma, we can't just go back to 2 days ago. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. How do we trust each other again? How do I know what you're really planning? You say you cancelled your date, but how do I know you're not just postponing it with Jason, or some other guy, until you find another way to betray me? How do I know this isn't just a move to make me cancel my plans? I felt like I was suffocating under the pressure of everything. Once trust is broken, can it really be rebuilt? Or am I going to have to question everything you do from now on? She looked shocked, and then whispered, So, you know his name? How did you find out? I didn't answer her. I just let that question hang in the air, let her sit with the realization that I knew more than she thought. Slowly, she slid closer to me, wrapping her arms around me in a tight hug. I'm so sorry, Jack. Can we just be ourselves for a while? At least until we figure this out. I don't want to think about it anymore today. For a moment, I didn't move, but then I let her hold me, the weight of everything pressing down as we sat in silence. This is so heavy, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Can we just be together tonight? We'll come back to all this tomorrow. I just need to feel close to you, to hold on to some hope that you won't push me away. I'm so sorry for bringing us here. I don't want it to end like this. Please. I leaned back, letting her rest against my chest. We sat there in silence, breathing together, holding on to each other physically, but emotionally, there was still that vast chasm between us. There was so much to work through, so much broken trust to repair, if that was even possible. When we finally went to bed, she kissed me and touched me, but even then, the distance between us lingered. At some point, I drifted off, only to wake later to the sound of her crying softly. I'm such a damn fool, she muttered under her breath. Darcy, why did I listen to you? We both slept, but it was fitful, the tension hanging thick in the air between us. Neither of us found real rest, and I knew we both woke up throughout the night, lost in our own thoughts and regrets. Thursday promised to be a tough day, filled with more waiting and reflection. We left for work, barely speaking except to agree that when we got home, we'd have the serious conversation we both knew was coming. Leftover Chinese food was on the menu, no wine, no beer, just the clarity of sober minds for what was sure to be a moment of reckoning. Before she got home, I set the stage. 2 folders, labeled A and B, sat on the table. Inside one was the prenuptial agreement, option A. In the other, divorce papers, option B. Both were face down, waiting. When Emma walked in, she glanced at the folders, her eyes betraying a flicker of nervousness. I kept my gaze on her, waiting for her to make the first move. This mess had been her doing, and I wanted her to take the lead in figuring out how to fix it. Finally, she spoke. "Jack, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I regret opening this door, and I want to close it, lock it, forever. Do you think you could forgive me? Forget this ever happened and move forward like before. We all make mistakes, and I know mine was a big one. Please." She gave me a hopeful smile, waiting for my response. I looked at her, my face serious. "No." Her smile crumbled, replaced by devastation. But I continued. "Emma, these past few weeks, you've lied to me. You told me those calls were from your sister, but they were from a man you planned to cheat on me with. You flirted, had lunches, kept secrets, all of it behind my back. You betrayed the trust we built together. And now you want to move forward. That's not how this works. Trust is broken, and I see only 2 ways to fix it." I picked up the first folder and handed it to her. Option A is an agreement we both follow, laying out the rules we'll stick to from here on out. It's strict, but it's fair. If we can't agree on these terms, then there's option B. I handed her the second folder, watching as she opened it to find the divorce papers inside. We'll split everything 50-50. No kids, no major assets. It'll be clean and simple. We go our separate ways. She gasped, her voice cracking as she squealed, "Divorce? No. No, Jack, you can't mean that. I can't live without you. Please forgive me." I waited for her to calm down before speaking again. "Emma, I don't want that either. But I'm serious. If we can't find a way to rebuild trust, then there's no point in dragging this out." Her face tightened, and she shot back, "What about you? You lied to me about that phone call yesterday. It wasn't a scam call, was it?" Her eyes narrowed, and I could see the hurt and suspicion there. "You see, trust is hard to rebuild once it's been broken." I took a deep breath. "We'll talk about that call in a bit, after we reach an agreement on option A. Can we at least agree to work on drafting something we both can live with? I want to make sure this agreement is something we both stick to," I said, looking at Emma as she flipped through her copy of the document. She muttered under her breath, "All these formalities feel like nonsense. Wow, this is strict." She skimmed the terms. "The phone always has to be on, with the tracking app active, so we can see each other's location at all times. And if one of us leaves work, we have to text the other with details about where we're going, how long we'll be there, and keep the app on, be ready for the other to show up unannounced." Damn. She shook her head. "And if we go anywhere without the other, we have to give exact details and keep our phone on the whole time," she mumbled. "I get it. The leash is short." She put down the papers and met my eyes. "I really hope we can get to a point where we don't need this anymore. But I understand why we're here. I'm sorry for what I did and how I made you lose trust in me." She took a deep breath. "I agree with all of this, but I want to add something more positive, like spending more time together. Let's make time for just the 2 of us, go on dates, talk about everything we're feeling and dreaming about. I want us to come out stronger from this." I smiled, feeling hopeful for the first time in a while. I agree. We made a few adjustments, signed the agreement, and then Emma, with a silly grin, added, maybe we should also put in a clause about having serious sex regularly. That way, we'll be too tired or too in love to even think about anyone else. I laughed and nodded. All right, let's add that too. And we did. Emma stood up, walked over to me, and sat in my lap. She kissed me, and it felt different this time, full of love, hope, and something we hadn't had for a while. Tell me we're going to be okay, Jack. Tell me you still want me to be your wife. I cupped her face in my hands and looked her in the eyes. I still want you to be my wife, Emma. I think we'll be okay. She leaned in for another kiss, but then she pulled back. Now, about that phone call, she said, her tone firmer. I smiled and pulled out my phone, playing the recording of the scam call for her. Her eyes widened, and then she burst out laughing. Oh my God, you sneaky bastard. Remind me never to cross swords with you again, she teased, playfully punching my arm before wrapping me in another hug. According to our new agreement, serious sex was supposed to happen right away. And, well, it was clearly in writing, so. Months passed since that intense Thursday, and things have been going well between us. We've rarely had to refer to the terms of the agreement, except for the sex part, which, honestly, has brought us closer. I've even popped by some of her lunch meetings unannounced, and she greets me with a hug, introducing me to everyone proudly. We spend more time together now, and the communication between us has been better than ever. Life felt good again. We were sitting on the couch, discussing plans for the upcoming 3-day weekend, when Emma's phone rang. She frowned, glancing at the screen. Weird. Why is my boss calling me this late? She answered. Hi, Betty, what a surprise. Everything okay? I couldn't make out the conversation, but something about her expression seemed off. Shelley gasped, her eyes wide. You've got to be kidding me. When did this happen? I couldn't hear the details from her phone, just a low murmur from the other end. Shelley sat there, stunned, before responding, wow, that's unbelievable. I'll contact my team right away. See you tomorrow at 7 a.m. in the main conference room. Got it. Good night, Betty. She hung up the phone and stared at it, her face pale and full of worry. I leaned forward, concern creeping into my voice. What's going on, babe? You look like you've just seen a ghost. Everything okay? Shelley turned toward me, her expression still troubled. Tomorrow morning, all the HR staff have to be at a meeting to discuss some new leadership policies that the lawyers are demanding. It's all because of what happened with Darcy. She was caught in bed with Jason, at home. Tony walked in on them. My eyebrows shot up in surprise, but she continued before I could respond. Apparently, Jason mouthed off, insulting Tony and laughing at him. That's when Tony lost it. He dragged Jason out of the house by his hair, naked, and beat him senseless. Jason's in the hospital now. His face is messed up bad. He's going to lose at least one eye. Darcy tried to stop Tony, but she got knocked down in the scuffle. She lost several teeth. Both of them are in the hospital. Tony's in jail. I raised an eyebrow, trying to process it all. Shelley caught my look and immediately raised her hand, signaling for me to stop. Don't say what you're thinking. I know what you're about to say. I get it. I was about to follow Darcy down that same rabbit hole. I couldn't help but sigh. Seems like Tony didn't handle her behavior as well as she thought, huh? Shelley nodded, her eyes clouded with a mix of guilt and relief. From what I know, Darcy and Tony are a bit older than us. Maybe Tony felt like he had too much to lose in a divorce, his house, his life. I guess he stayed quiet until he just snapped. I leaned back, shaking my head. You're probably right. That kind of mess ruins lives, Shelley. 3 people, wrecked because they couldn't stick to the rules. I couldn't stay quiet, even though she had asked me to. I'm just glad we're not in that sinking ship. Shelley gave me a light punch on the chest. I asked you not to comment, she said, a small, tired smile playing on her lips. I laughed softly but felt a heavy sadness in my chest. I know. I just hate seeing lives get ruined over selfishness. She sighed. I'm glad we're not them. I hope we've learned from their mistakes. I nodded, thinking about everything we had been through. Our relationship had changed so much, and even though we were trying to rebuild, things weren't the same. Our game has definitely changed, I said. Maybe one day, we can go back to living by the old rules. For now, all we could do was take it one step at a time, hoping that this new version of us could survive. Thank you for sticking with me until the end. I guess this is where our story pauses for now. Take care of yourself, and of the people you love. Goodbye.